Obviously, there's a lot going on right now. We have investigations happening in New York City, but we also have them happening here in Las Vegas. We know that they sent 2 groups of investigators here to Las Vegas. Is it unusual to have NYPD go to different jurisdictions for these types of investigations?
You know, there are different task force that NYPD and most law enforcement agencies have. NYPD is a very large police agency, and because they want to get as much information as possible, they do send New York City police officers to different cities, states, and even different countries. NYPD actually has offices in other countries right now. They've always had that in Israel and India and different countries. The goal is to basically to supply intel at real time. These days, of course, with technology, things are better, but they've always had officers positions in different countries specifically to get information in real time to maybe there could be a connection to New York City being a big city, and they want to be on top of their game to prevent any crime from taking place. In this situation, the goal is to maybe get as much intel as possible just to see if there's any type of negligence that maybe someone was involved in, how he got the firearm, was things done legally, maybe there should have been a notification, maybe something was missing, where maybe he was admitted into a hospital, which we call a legal 2000, where there's a hold. You know, maybe notification should have taken place to Las Vegas Metro, specifically the firearms section, to maybe remove his firearms. Again, I don't know his history or his mental health situation, but if there was a legal 2000 done, then maybe notification needed to take place. Did that take place, you know, or should it take place, or should there be a standard in the future where there are mental health situations and or a legal 2000 that's done where we have to check to see if he has a CCW or firearms at his home, which could be a concern for people in the community.
So I wanted to ask you a little further on what you just said. So we have red flag laws here in Nevada, which means if there's a case where the person is unstable, a license, a CCW permit can be taken away, revoked. So is that something that, in this case, knowing that they said he may have some type of mental issues, that that could be a possibility that they're looking at?
Correct. I mean, there's normally a duty to report when you're a nurse or you're a doctor or a police officer or even a teacher. In this situation, if he did receive prescribed medication for mental health issues, the question is, would Las Vegas Metro Police Department be notified? But again, would the doctor know that he had firearms? What is the communication, you know, taking place from a mental health organization to law enforcement? So that could be a concern. I'd be concerned about that as well. If someone's on medication, the question is how much medication and what types of medication, you know, are they allowed to be on while also having a CCW permit or buying a firearm? So it'll be interesting to see what partakes with the investigation in the near future to find out what took place. But again, this probably, you know, we could look at this on more of a global situation as well. If people suffer from mental health in every state, you know, even though there's federal laws and state laws, you know, maybe something more can be done to prevent situations like this, which is what I'm thinking the NYPDs and other law enforcement, ATF as well, is looking to see what maybe to prevent in the future as well. I think that's a concern for most people, right? Especially for the lives that were taken. People are probably looking to see what negligence took place, possibly, if it was.
Mm-hmm. And that's happening, that's NYPD's investigation, right?
It could be both. I mean, NYPD basically, you know, because the crime took place in New York City, they always work with different local law enforcement or states. So in this situation, I'm assuming Metro and NYPD will work together in regards to investigating the firearm or the mental health state, whether maybe the CCW would be removed because of his mental health situation or medication that he may be on. Again, I don't know about his, you know, medical situation, but normally if it's a legal 2000 in this particular state, firearms would be removed, and then they would notify Las Vegas Metro Firearms section that he was placed on a legal 2000 hold. He was taken into custody because it was maybe fear for himself or fear for others, and that something should be done with his firearms. But if police go to his home, now here he had 2 different residences, maybe they would remove the firearm, but maybe at the time they didn't know about his second home, and maybe there were firearms there that could have been removed as well. So it becomes a little bit of a difficult situation, and they'll be interesting to see what happens, you know, with a little bit more deeper, you know, investigation.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions here. What about the person who gives them the guns? It looks like they're already looking into someone who gave a part of the weapon that was used. So is that part of what NYPD's investigation looks at too, is where and who was part of getting that gun?
I mean, ATF is the main thing with firearms, but NYPD, you know, it's everyone working together just to deem if the firearm was modified in some way. I mean, maybe the question is if the other person knew that the firearm was going to be modified because he was going to commit a crime, right? Then there's conspiracy, or that the other person was involved. We just don't know. I can't really imagine that situation, because some people that are really big with firearms will change things out. They'll add a flashlight, they'll add tactical stuff in general. Some people are really big into that. So who knows? We'll see what are the parts that he purchased, who he purchased it from. But on a whole, right, he had a CCW, he's allowed to purchase a firearm, he's allowed to purchase other parts of the firearm, again, unless there was some type of negligence, or someone was involved in it that knew he was going to go to New York City basically to commit this crime and or suicide, which would be rare.
We were talking about, outside of just investigating the whole part of the firearm situation, you said that there's also a tracking system, right? So he obviously made a long trek from Las Vegas to New York City. What is that investigation portion looking like? How do they track the drive? What do they look for in whatever they find?
It's very interesting, just like with the situation with the suicide that took place over at the Trump location. The Tesla vehicles, right, have all these different cameras, so they're able to get all that information from Tesla, which is the first time, right, this person in that vehicle was driving to different stations because he was actually getting electricity in order to move that vehicle. I'm assuming there's cameras at the Tesla locations as well. In this particular situation, I believe he had a regular car. And at this point in time, the best thing to use for law enforcement is called LPR, which is license plate recognition system. The LPR basically will take the license plate information of the vehicle, and hopefully, right, it's the right license plate, it's not a stolen plate, and they can actually use LPR to collect information. These are little cameras that are on police cars or on different locations. Like if you go over a bridge, right, it's scanning the license plate, and it actually takes all the information and will show you the date and time stamp and the address of where that vehicle was last seen. So if we did an LPR report on this particular vehicle that he was driving, we would see maybe different locations in Las Vegas where he was visiting, where he was going. Maybe it was at the location where he purchased a firearm that day, right? It just depends. Officers that drive around in patrol vehicles have these little cameras that are basically clicking away. Most of the community really doesn't know about it in general, but it is out there. And it is a tool because you run that plate, you run that report, and you can see where that car is. So let's just say there's a murder scene in general. We run the plate, we can see where he went, the activity, the behavior. Maybe he kept going to a 7-Eleven multiple times, or maybe he kept going to a firearm store multiple times. We can learn a lot about his behavior by seeing where his car is. So even though it's not specifically GPS, the LPR basically is when random vehicles, or even an actual possible a bus that would actually maybe capture a license plate, we can use that information to basically find out locations and behavior by putting everything together. So it is a good system in general for law enforcement to use. As you know, the cameras in this state do not record by state law. A lot of lobbyists are fighting not to have cameras record. Right now it's used for the Department of Transportation, Department of Traffic, where basically they're looking to see the flow of traffic. Or if there's an accident, they would notify the police to go to location because traffic is being backed up. So that is not recording. But even in HOA communities these days, they're using LPR as well, where they're taking pictures of plates when you drive into a community. So again, it's actually a big deal, and it does help in a lot of different ways. But if a plate's stolen, right, or they put a piece of paper to block the license plate, that you wouldn't have that information. But these days it's a valuable tool, and it'd be very interesting to get an LPR report to see where he was in Vegas, and as he traveled, where they picked up his locations to track him.
What else could they see on the route? Because you said if he goes maybe to a gun store often, or maybe visits a certain person, what else could it show on the route itself? Did he stop to see somebody, or was his behavior like this? What is important to see on the route from Las Vegas to New York City that could kind of give some hints into all that happened here?
Well, locally in town, when I look at some of these reports, you're actually going to see, like, if it's an apartment complex, you would see that car and maybe the apartment complex nearby and some other cars. So it could be other cars that are nearby, and maybe there's another associate or another person that maybe conspired, right? There was another vehicle that's seen multiple times. If you run that license plate, you can see if there's any ties with that one. Also, sometimes when the police have CAD reports. A CAD report basically is a report when an officer goes to a location. Like today, if I was here, there's a CAD report number. Some offices will update the CAD report to include the license plate number. So you can basically take the information of the license plate in a CAD report, and you could use the LPR report and maybe then find out if there's, if those cars are nearby each other duplicating. Sometimes there's the actual people inside the LPR report next to the vehicle, right? Maybe if he was purchasing a firearm and a car was driving by, or a bus or a police car, and it snapped a photo, he could be next to that car as well. So there's definitely valuable information of how deep you go into it, especially if someone's conspiring with somebody and the vehicles were next to each other and the LPR basically snapped that photo and that plate next to it is visible as well.
Overall, I mean, obviously this happened Monday night. How long do investigations of this scope usually take?
I don't think this one should be that deep in general. I mean, unless there's someone that conspired with him, I really don't believe that in general. Like I said, he had access to firearms. The big question really comes down to is, if he was taken into custody for mental health, what type of communication with Metro Police in regards to maybe removing the firearms, suspending his CCW permit, not doing they call it a knock and talk, where you knock on the door, knock on his house, talk to his family members, just doing a welfare check on him to make sure he's okay. I mean, I believe the problem with it is that the mental health is a problem for a lot of people. We used to say that 95% of people suffer from some type of mental health issues. I mean, a lot of people suffer from depression, and people can do things that are, not wanted. But the bottom line is, I don't think it'll be a major amount of time. I think they'll come out here, they'll search the homes, they'll see what's inside the homes in general, just to see if there's any leftover notes or videos, social media, stuff like that in general, just to put the whole puzzle together. I mean, it seems very clear he definitely had some mental health injuries. He was going specifically to New York City to target the NFL. I think he took the wrong elevator and wound up in the wrong place in general. But it seems very clear that basically he is upset about the NFL and in regards to just the sport itself, whether it's for younger people or for older people. But look, there's millions of dollars that are basically involved, billions, in regards to NFL. Are they going to just get rid of the NFL because there's brain injuries? Do you get a bigger helmet now for people involved in it? Do you stop football from being played in high school? Like, how far do we go as a society in regards to brain injuries? So it's kind of a big question. Football has been played for a very, very long time. Do we just get rid of the sport because it's causing brain injuries? I mean, what does the community say about that? Should we be stopping the sport? I mean, sometimes people say that when we drive a car, we get into car accidents. Do we stop giving people vehicles to drive because there's accidents? Same thing with firearms, right? There's suicide that takes place. Do we get rid of firearms? How far do we go? Is this an unusual situation, or does the NFL have to do more, in regards to preventing, brain injuries for players, which would trickle down to the youth in high school?
Okay. So right now, main parts of the investigation, tracking the route, also seeing if this person did have mental issues, did authorities know, and in that case, should the permit have been revoked? Those are the big things right now.
Correct. Or the communication between, right, the mental health organization, let's say it's a local hospital, and then notifying law enforcement, the time frame or the notifications where they could jump on it and knock on the door and maybe remove the firearms. Also, remember, if you buy a bunch of firearms, you're allowed to. I could lie and tell you I have no firearms, or I have one firearm, or I sold all my firearms, or they were stolen. I mean, how do you really know, right? So even if law enforcement knocks on the door, you are allowed to buy firearms as long as you pass the background check, or as long as you have a CCW. So it's not as easy as it looks, but yes, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if better communication, quicker communication, or even if we have to change some things in regards to the mental health system of notification to Metro. So if I get picked up right now, do I automatically have to call a phone number to say, like, look, I took someone for a legal 2000, and should we notify Metro Firearms where he may have a possible firearm in the house? Do they immediately go out? Do they immediately do a search warrant, right? Like, I mean, how quickly do we speed up the process if someone suffers from mental health? And then again, could someone be hiding a firearm in the home? How much of a search do you do inside the home? Even if you got a legal search warrant, are we breaking into the to the attic and all the other stuff to look for one firearm? So it's a tough call, but yes, you're on the right track in regards to what NYPD and local law enforcement is going to do to just figure out if anyone else is involved in it, or if it's just solely what we would call sometimes a lone wolf in regards to a terrorist situation. But this situation, it's more of a person that's wanted to commit suicide and to make it known that there's issues, to basically put on a display in regards to killing some people, and then say, hey, look, check my brain because I may have some brain injuries. This is your fault, and you need to like make it more aware to the community of what's really taking place, that they're hiding something. So, it seems like with his death, he wanted to make it known, and he wanted people to know that there's issues with football and brain injuries.
Anything you think we missed?
I think the only thing I would share, as they do in the investigation, it will be interesting just to see what they find, especially in the vehicles. The vehicle that he had in New York City, he was traveling, so it'd be interesting that what information he had. These days, what's very interesting is social media posts. I have not looked on the social media. I'm not sure if you guys look, but it'd be interesting. Like these days, so many people, there's so much social media, plus there's AI being involved in it, that if there's a social media post, how quick law enforcement can really react to it. So if he basically makes a claim online, how quick is law enforcement out there knocking on the door or trying to find someone? If he made any type of remarks and comments, again, there's thousands and thousands of social media profiles that are out there, and some are different countries and some are local. Some say they're from, Las Vegas or New York in general. So, the question really comes to what do we do to prevent this stuff in the future? So, again, in the long run, we'll figure this all out, but the question really comes down to what do we learn from this situation so we can prevent deaths from like this taking place in the future from anyone suffering any type of mental health issue.
And that's a big part of their investigation. Who would be able to make those decisions? Is it ATF? Is it NYPD? Is it Las Vegas Metro? Who would
to make changes? I think it becomes a state level, become more of a law that would take place. Of course, the sheriff locally in town can make rules and regulations or policies and procedures, but I think it may come up to being like the assembly, the state assembly, to make a rule or a law that this must take place. Of course, the sheriff can make policies and procedures, but when it comes to firearms, right, a lot of people fight to have their rights, to have the right to bear firearms, a right to arm yourself as well. So there are people that are always going to fight different ways. People don't want firearms out there, but the reason probably that America is not invaded is because we all have firearms. So that's the reason why I think Japan back in the day wouldn't invade America, because we have so many firearms throughout the United States of America. So the sad thing is that there's pros and cons. It's sad that we've lost several lives. A New York City police officer, a fellow peer of mine, not that I knew him, but they're all considered brothers once you're in law enforcement, especially I was NYPD. It's a very sad situation in general. So the bottom line is, what can we learn? How do we save lives from this? What changes can we make, whether it's a local law enforcement level or state level or federal?